So we're here for So, where you are nominated for your Broadway debut. How are you guys doing, first of all? Yeah? It's my first panel of the day. I'm super pumped. I'm Michael Joya. I work at Playbill. I'm moderating. These two are the famous ones. We have Lauren Worsham, who is nominated for her role as Phoebe Dyke-Smith in A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. And Celia Keenan-Bolger, who is nominated for her performance as Logan Schwarzenegger. Olive Ostrovsky. Why am I mixing the two up? In the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. There you go. It's because I want to play Logan. Sorry. That really is a dream role of mine. Anyway, this is loud. Cool. So, first of all, I want to start with you, Lauren. So after Lauren got nominated that year, I was at the Tony Awards junket day, where the day after nominations, all of the nominees meet the press. And like, we're in a crazy hotel room and we're trying to do interviews, and they're going like back to back to back to back in all these different rooms, and they're giving 1 million interviews a day, and we were like literally in a hallway like scrunched up, and I was like using this phone being like, can I get an interview with you? So anyway, she told me this fantastic story about, at the day that she was nominated, her ride home on the subway. Which I then wrote about, because I thought it was cool. So, Lauren, give us that story about that day.
I feel like I'm at the UN. I know. No kidding, I was about to curse, I shouldn't say that. What was the story? I was riding home on the subway, and I hadn't really processed the fact that a dream, since I was a little girl, had kind of come true that day, that I'd been nominated for a Tony. It's hard to wrap your head around. And so the first person that I really told was the man sitting next to me on the train, who was probably homeless, not exactly sure. But he had no idea what the Tony Awards were, and but was really, really supportive, because clearly I was excited, but I kind of had to explain it to him, and I thought it was both wonderful and also very humbling, which I think is important to remember, that, we're in a tiny community, a very strong community, but there's a lot of people out there who have no idea what Broadway is and what the Tony Awards are. And also, interestingly, Celia was nominated the year that I was nominated for A Glass Menagerie. Yeah. And I remember you said to me, it was hard because you weren't currently doing the show, but at the same time it was easier because you weren't currently doing the show. Anyway, interesting tidbit.
Well, yeah, we'll get into all of that too. It's like, for those of you who don't know, like, award season is crazy. It's like super, super busy. But first, let's get to you, Celia. The year you were nominated, the year that Spelling Bee came in was also the same year that Light in the Piazza came in, and you originated a role in Light in the Piazza. However, you did Spelling Bee that year. So take me through that year of not doing the one show between the other, and then still coming out at the end of the day with a Tony nomination.
Yeah, I like that you sort of frame it like, you didn't do the Light in the Piazza. I was not asked to do the Light in the Piazza, so that's why I didn't get to do it. So that was a very, very painful and difficult moment in my career, where I was like, oh, I guess I'm just a little bit of damaged goods, because I was in the new Adam Guettel musical, and now I'm not. So how am I going to play this? And I had luckily, my friend Jesse Tyler Ferguson, who I had done, he's up and coming. You'll see his name someday. We had done a play together, a Michael John Cusa musical, and he was workshopping this little show about a spelling bee in the Berkshires, and he was like, there's actually a really great part for you in it. But the woman who created the entire show is playing it, and she's also directing it, and she's also written it. So this is Rebecca Feldman, who's an amazing artist and person. And they decided that they wanted that character to have more singing. And Rebecca was she was an improviser and a writer, and so she was like, I'm not really a singer, that's never been my thing. But the more they decided it would be a musical, the more it became clear that she wasn't the right fit for what they were trying to make. And so this sort of strange thing where I was replaced by someone in a musical, I then went in and replaced someone in the musical that she had made from the ground up in the exact same way that I had. And the Tonys, this was in 2007, and they were very different back then. There were all of the sort of mayhem of the award season did not really exist, I think because social media platforms were so much less. And I remember I didn't wake up to watch them, the nominations, and now I'm like, what are you, crazy? Of course I'm gonna watch the nominations if it's a year that I'm a part of it. But it all was sort of, and I think because in my heart, Spelling Bee was this amazing thing that I got to be a part of, but it always felt a little bit like Second Banana, that I was like, I thought I was gonna be doing this other thing. That then, waking up, and I think the first phone call I got that morning was from Bart Shear, who had directed Light in the Piazza, congratulating me, and I was like, what's happening? And so it was a really, if I'm totally honest, it was a complex Tony Award nomination and season to be a part of, because I was like, you should just be so happy you're here. You could be on your couch watching the Piazza get all of these accolades. And instead, I was with all of these people who I cared so much about, who I had built this show with, along with this other family that I felt very much a part of. But it wasn't, as are many things in life, it was not the way that I imagined it. And so it was a really, and I still hadn't seen Piazza yet, so I got to watch their segment from the show, and I was just like, this is the most beautiful musical ever. You've been in that show. Yeah. Lauren also played Clara. And Spencer. I could not play a role in Gentleman's Guide. Not even close. But yeah, it was a really, I would say ultimately pretty healing and so lucky for how it worked out. And I mean, I just think particularly Kelly, who is so filled with grace and is such a truly wonderful person. It could have been a very different experience if she was a different person. And so, yeah, that was my first time.
Well, that was very interesting. Lauren, take us through a little bit of yours. First of all, you also, like you were just saying, you were in 25th. I am the County Spelling Bee. You understudied, yes?
No. I was in the first national
God, I'm
tour.
getting it all wrong.
Where are your note cards? Yeah, I was in the first national tour. So the tour that went out right when you guys were still on Broadway, and they also had a sit down in San Francisco, which I think then went to Boston, which was a whole different company. Yeah, so that was a long time ago. And then I didn't do anything related to Broadway for years. I just did a bunch of opera and new music and thought, oh, Broadway's not gonna happen. And then I auditioned for Gentleman's Guide. I did a workshop out of town, and then I didn't do the out of towns because I was doing opera. And then they asked me to come back and audition, and the composer was telling me that I had it in the bag, it's gonna be you, because they re-auditioned, so I was replacing somebody. And then they didn't offer it to me. It went to someone else who turned it down because she had just gone through a very bad experience with a new musical saying that it was going to come onto Broadway and then did not come to Broadway. So she lost a job, and she didn't want to put herself in that situation again. And I am so grateful that she did that. Because then they called me and gave the part to me. So, tidbits. But anyway, what was the question?
Like what your journey was to Jet's
yeah. Similarly to Celia, I had a lot of mixed emotions about being nominated for a Tony, because in my year in our company, there were basically 4 leads, Jefferson Mays, Bryce Pinkham, myself, and Lisa O'Hare. And thank you. And all of whom are amazing. And the way it just turned out, because it is a crapshoot, Lisa did not get nominated, but the 3 of us did. And it was very complicated and painful for everybody. And so I think it's important to remember that it's a wonderful gift and it's special, but it really is just icing, because there are so many performances every year that do not get recognized. And it's literally because of what they're up against. I mean, for instance, if Hedwig had been considered an original Broadway show that year and not a revival, Gentleman's Guide would not have won, and we would have closed. And it literally, it's a political thing, and I think it's a wonderful thing, but I also think that there are just as many fantastic performers who don't get nominated.
You have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question. I know that you guys, originated the roles in the end, because you were the first ones that did them on Broadway. But like people who took over for you, like do you have good relationships with them?
Oh, I certainly do. Catherine Walker was my understudy on Broadway, and she took over Phoebe, and I love Catherine. We're good buddies. And I have since met Shalina Kennedy, who did Phoebe Out of Town, and then she ended up going on to Beautiful and taking over for Jessie. Yeah, so I mean, it's a small community, so I'd say we.
Yeah, and I remember seeing they did a run through in the room. Your company of Spelling Bee did like their final rehearsal at New 42. And Lauren, I'm not just saying this because you were here, I would say it if you weren't here. I was like, I am stealing some of the things she's doing. She is amazing. And it was so exciting to get to watch it, also because I had never seen Spelling Bee before. I also was like, you guys, this show is good. And we're like, we know. But if you've never seen it before, you're just inside of it. And it was so, I remember, I'm sure I would not have wanted to be in your guys' position, but I remember that as like a real boost for all of us, because we had been doing it, I don't know, for like a year at that point. And after you've done a show for a year, and also we had done it off Broadway, and also we had done it in the Berkshires, we were like, we know how this show goes. And we were reaching a little plateau of, I just think, fatigue and excitement about the show. And I think watching this other cast like so amazingly put their print on it was truly helpful to all of us to be like, right, there's more to be mined, there's more that we can enjoy about it. And it was just like a really, I always think about that run through and how much it sort of influenced the next 6 months of what we had to do. And it's really nice when you get to have that opportunity to see someone else play a role that you've played.
Guys, take me through award season a little bit. And I mean, you said that it's changed over the years. I've been doing award seasons for like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years now. And they're crazy. Like, the day, and you know, since Spelling Bee, Slay has been nominated a few other times, most recently for Glass Menagerie. And you know, it's crazy. Like once you get that nomination, we're kind of collecting interviews over the phone like that day. I don't know if either of you had to do interviews that day, but at Playbill we'll like call up all the Tony nominees and get their reaction that day. And then you go into meet the press the next day. And then you're in a full season of different events and meetings, and you have to get dressed up and go out and like get ready for the Tonys. What is that like for you, especially in your first year doing that? Like, is it a whirlwind?
Well, I think what I will say is that the first year to me, and I think also because there were just so many fewer events, it was like the Tony, like the day after the nominations come out, maybe like the Dramatists Guild luncheon, and then the Drama Desk Awards, and that was it. And now I would say there's at least one a week leading up to the Tony Awards as far as events go. So my first year was just like amazing and very, very low-key. I do think one thing that I have felt a little bit is that after you've been nominated once, you feel a certain pressure and an embarrassment if you're not nominated the next time around, which is ridiculous. But I think I did Les Mis right after smelling me, and I knew that I was not going to be nominated for it, but I also, that morning, was like, no. And I think that every time I've been on Broadway since, I would be lying to you if I didn't feel like, I hope that this goes my way, you know? And so I think there's a different kind of pressure. I have felt a different kind of pressure in subsequent years. And I think the difference between your show still running while you're, which is what Lauren, you were doing, I know, while you're attending all of these events, and like my experience with Glass Menagerie, where we'd closed and then I was nominated, I was like, this is a breeze. Because this is my only job, is to like show up and eat some bad chicken and then like be on my way. Whereas most people are like trying to save their energy to perform the 8 shows a week that they have to do. So it's intense. And also like the stupid stuff of like getting dressed, where I found that to be enormously stressful. Like, what am I gonna wear to a bunch of different events where I'm photographed, where in 2007, nobody cared what you were wearing because there weren't websites that showed pictures of you and what you were wearing. So it's, I mean, I think just in that small amount of time, things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, I loved walking the red carpet and taking photos, loved that. Loved getting my picture taken, loved posing, loved doing interviews. Hated that I had to perform at the same time. Because you go to these events and they're loud, and you need to talk to people because you gotta schmooze, you know, your producers are expecting you. It's kind of like, it is a campaign, much like for president. Where you are trying to convince people to vote for your show and vote not just for you, but more for your show. And so you go to loud parties where people are drinking alcohol at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have a show that night, you know, in 4 hours you gotta go. And you're thinking, okay, I gotta sing a high B flat tonight, but right this second I need to talk to the delegate from Florida and convince them that Jones guy needs to be in Florida and we love Florida, you know, and it's a lot all at once. So the frivolous parts of it I enjoy, the having to also try to do the best I can do, which is what we always try to do as performers while doing everything else. That was challenging.
Do you also feel an expectation at the theater now that you've been Tony nominated and now the audience is coming to see Tony nominee Lauren Worsham that night? You know.
My husband looked up this phrase for me because I didn't know before, but I had imposter syndrome. Have any of the ladies in the house heard about that?
Yep.
Where I kept thinking, this is a mistake. This is a mistake. They clearly made a mistake. They should not have nominated me. There's something wrong, you know. And it blew my mind. Honestly, it drove me a little crazy, especially when the fact that Lisa, who did just as amazing job, in my opinion, as Sabella, and was this amazing performer, did not get nominated. And I kept thinking, I do not belong here. Lisa belongs here. So it's complicated, y'all. Yeah.
I want to take some questions from the audience, but before we do that, I have a lightning round of questions for you guys.
Right here.
Love a lightning round.
Great. We're just gonna swap. So, like, who wants to start?
I'll start.
Great. What was going through your head when they announced your name at the Tonys?
I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah. Lauren, who was the first person you called when you got nominated?
My mother.
Where were you when you got the nomination, Celia?
In bed.
Lauren, yes or no, did you prepare a speech?
No. Yes. No. Yes. No, I didn't prepare it for the drama desk, and then I won, and then I made a fool of myself. So then I did prepare for the drama desk.
Celia, that first year, did you think you'd get the nomination?
No.
Why?
Not at all. I think the whole idea of awards were just not quite on my radar yet. That was not, in a way that it is now.
Right.
But no, that was not in my head.
Mm.
Maybe that's not true. Because I think, actually, now that you're saying that, because I think the Drama Desk Awards come out before that.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And we won the Drama Desk Award that year for Best Ensemble. And so I was like, oh, right, but even that is a little different than being nominated yourself.
Right.
So I remember, I'm sure I clocked like, oh, right, this whole thing.
Right.
But I don't remember expecting it or assuming that
Yeah.
it was something that could happen.
Cool. Lauren, who did you wear to the Tonys? Yes.
I bought it.
We both wore orange that year.
You're on this.
I wish I had pictures here to show you. Alas. Celia, what did you do that day before going to the ceremony? Going to the Tonys?
A matinee. Jesse Tyler, the up-and-coming Jesse Tyler, he made fun of me because for the Tony Award performance, I was like in my red carpet look, and then he was like, "Whoa, we have glamour all over you on this one." Just in like pink overalls and like a smoky eye. This does look kind of ridiculous.
Lauren, who was your date to the Tonys?
My husband.
Yeah. Celia, who was the first person to call you when you got nominated?
I think Bart Shear.
Oh, yes, right,
The
you
director of the
said.
Light in the Piazza.
Who was the first person to call you, Lauren?
I don't know the person who called me, but Mark Kudish texted me, which was amazing. And I'm not going to tell you what he said, but it was
Celia, who were you most starstruck to meet that night at the Tonys?
Oh, that's good. Who else was nominated? Come back to me on that. What year? It was like 2007. What were the other? Oh, Sada Ramirez.
Yes, that one.
Yes.
Sarah won that year.
Yes. And I had not seen the show at that point, but I was a huge fan of hers from other shows. And she had crazy allergies during the Tonys and was on like a lot of Claritin and had been sick the whole week leading up. And we got to watch their performance. And I didn't realize because I hadn't seen the show, she spoke. She was like, "Find your grail, find your grail." And I was like, this is fascinating. Realizing that she actually sang that song. With the whole like rehearsal, she spoke it, and I was like, this is so not what I expected. Then we got to the actual Tony Awards, and I was like, she's incredible. She sang, but yeah.
Amazing. Lauren, biggest onstage mishap since getting nominated? Yeah. Or just give me a mishap story. Those are always fun.
Sorry. Yeah, one time, Eddie Corbett accidentally stepped on my long train, and I just went all the way down to the floor. And in a corset, which I don't know, those of you who wear corsets, you can't bend. So, you're just like hands and knees, and I was still singing. I kept singing, but he had to like kind of help me up. It was very awkward, but it was funny. I think people thought it was supposed to be. That's the thing. No one knows if you don't make a face. So.
Celia, what did you sing for your audition for Spelling Bee?
I sang 2 songs, one from Free to Be You and Me. And they were like, do you have anything that shows off your voice? And then I sang Passover by Bill Finn from Elegies.
Cool. Lauren, best pre-Tony event?
Maybe, I don't know, not the best, but the weirdest is the,
Weirdest too, I'll take that.
I think it's the dramatists, where they march everybody in, like in a parade. The league, yeah, it's so weird. All the nominees march in like in a parade in front of you, and then they sit on a dais, like a giant wedding, and you just watch them eat. And then they stand up and give really like bizarre speeches, and then we all just eat watching each other.
Celia, best after party?
Oh, the year of Spelling Bee? Or just in general?
Or just in general, give me
There's that Carlisle party.
Carlisle party is
that is so
pretty fun.
much fun. Yeah, there's a company that does press for Broadway shows, and they throw like a party in the Carlisle Hotel that's like a multi-level, really fun time.
They moved it, yeah.
Last year.
They moved it. And last year though, I did go and they had in like an upstairs room, it was like my dream. It was a bathtub full of ice and champagne bottles. Like that's what you're getting at the Tonys. So
It's
it's
an
like,
awesome party.
it's a great
I
time.
took my parents because they didn't go to the Tonys because those tickets were expensive, but they came to the after party, and I remember there was this room where tea was set up, and we had tea at like 2 a.m. But like with scones and crumpets, and they brought you hot. I mean, it was like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, can you give me some memories from that Carlisle party? I mean, it's like, for those who don't know, it's so cool and glam, and it's like inside, like it's the party to
like
be at.
a fake Broadway. It's like what you imagine Broadway is like, when in fact Broadway is actually like performing in a basement at Circle in the Square, which is also amazing. But I think it's easy, particularly if you're a young person, to be like, oh my god, it's so glamorous, like Broadway is so glamorous. And you're like, you do your own makeup, you usually do your own hair, you like do your show 8 times a week. There's actually the glamour component in comparison to, I think, a lot of the other art forms is quite low. So when you get to go to a party at the Carlisle, it feels really significant and fun.
Yeah.
And everybody's relieved because it's over. It's finally over, and now we can just go back to doing our jobs and hanging out, and all the pressure's gone. So it's a great party.
For the press, however, we're real busy that next day. But they like make you cover the party, so I go and I party, and then I'm real sad that next day. What about the Plaza party too? That one's really cool as well. You didn't go? Did you go, Celia?
I went the year that Neil did the Amazing Lynn opening and closing number when I wasn't. Actually, that was the most fun I have ever had at the Tony Awards. Was a year that I was not nominated. And I was like, this is amazing. Because you are just so present, you are invested in everyone as opposed to your own show. And I went to the Plaza that year and just ate a lot of food court food.
The food is crazy. Do you remember like what they had? Like they had like stations,
Yeah,
right?
Lots of pulled pork for this guy.
Yeah, like just stations of food. It's food on food on food on food. It's like a dream come true. So I highly recommend it. Go out there, get Tony nominated. There's also another event that you guys all have, which is like the Tony Luncheon Day, which is the only day that press is not allowed at. Can you tell us about that, since I don't know a thing about that? I've never been.
Oh, yeah. We had ours was at what's that? The Queen of the Night. Yeah. You just like and you sat around and ate. I remember that year was the year that they took sound design off. The year I was nominated. So the whole luncheon was a lot about trying to support the members of the community who are sound designers and who've just been kind of slapped in the face. I mean, it's basically just kind of a get together with bad
Yeah, and I think some people, they give out their awards at that event, like the Lifetime, the people whose awards are not aired on CBS get their awards then.
Right.
And you usually get to sit, like, I remember this last go around, I sat with like some designers who I had never really met or known before, so that's always interesting, because usually you're clumped in your performance category with like the other actors who you already basically know, so I appreciate it in that respect, that you get to hang out with the creators.
On the flip side, does it get so exhausting doing so much press throughout the award season?
It gets exhausting that so many of the questions are the same. That I sometimes feel like, it's like, how do you feel? Really excited. Still. I'm always so happy when you have someone asking a little more nuanced questions.
Yeah.
I like press and I like taking the photos. I didn't want to go do the show that night. I wanted to do either the press or the show. I didn't want to do both.
Right.
And press is easier than the show.
Yes.
Totally, you're just standing there talking.
Yeah, you're just talking with somebody.
You're chatting.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Cool, let's open up the floor for questions. We have a few minutes left, right in the back over there.
Yeah, you mentioned about the repetitiveness of the question. What's the best question or really memorable question you asked that you enjoy or like?
Best question.
I think something that feels either sort of specific to your show or specific to your career, to sort of say, like, how is this different from before? Or how do you feel your show lines up in the context of this larger season? I mean, honestly, anything for me that isn't like, how are you feeling?
Oh, I thank you, Lauren.
Well, Michael is really good at asking questions because he's fun and you have a great knowledge of the season.
Well, that's what I was just gonna try and say too. I mean, what I do, I always try and look for the story. That's why I found your story so compelling, because it's just like, because you guys want to know the stories, like you want to know them. How do you guys feel about getting asked stuff that's more specific and personal and story driven rather than, you know, and I see so many times those questions that are like, what's your favorite part of the show? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous? It's like same, blah, 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 blah. Like, you as a reader, like, you don't even care about that. Like, yeah, I'm excited. Exactly, sure, it's obvious. But like, how do you feel about getting those more personal, specific questions?
I really like it, but I think there are people that feel like this is not the time for that.
Right.
But I feel like I'm basically an open book, so I appreciate an opportunity to talk more personally.
Right. I think that people want to know you for who you are because we get to see your performances. So now it's like, what's kind of behind the curtain? What does your life look like? You know, like those kinds of things. Yeah? We have another question all the way in the back. So we're talking Peter and the Starcatcher, just if you guys couldn't hear, and how much was worked on as an ensemble piece. Yes, how much was put into the ensemble?
I mean, it was Alex Timber's incredible brain that really made that show. I think what he would do, he would say, okay, so we're gonna do a sequence where you go through the bowels of the ship. So you'll like go down some stairs, go through a bunch of doors, open them up, see different things, crawl like above a thing, and then you end up in a room with 4 other people. Here's a string. How would that look? And so it was he was sort of the foundation of what he was trying to make. And then it was a lot of Stephen Hoggett, who did the movement, and all of us being like, okay, what is, and I remember initially it took a really, really long time to come up with how that would be made. And of course, when you're inside of it, you can't tell what it looks like from the outside. And what I think was really effective about that show is how visually stunning it was. So we would have worked so hard, and Alex would be like, that was great. Can you hold your arm like this instead of this? And you're like, are you kidding me? But I think that sort of attention to detail was a part of, so it was probably the most collaborative thing I've ever been part of. And it was a show where we did like a lot of theater games and things that I'm generally a little suspect of, but that I think absolutely, like Roger Reese, when we were in La Jolla, we all had to memorize a sonnet, And on the first day, we like did the sonnet and like rolled around on the floor, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess." But I think that stuff actually ended up really paying off in the long term. But I would not say that cast made the piece. It was a deeply collaborative experience.
Right over here.
This is for both of you guys. One, what's the weirdest note you've ever got? And two, how do you keep yourself grounded? Like, especially after being nominated, like, how do you not show up to every show and be like, well, I'm nominated?
So we got, what is the weirdest note you've ever got? And how do you keep yourself grounded? Because now you're a Tony nominee.
I did an apocalyptic opera called Dog Days, directed by Robert Woodruff. Most of you might be too young to know who that is. He directed a lot of the original productions of Sam Shepard plays. He's an amazing director. The weirdest note I got from him is he asked me, there was a scene where I had to urinate on stage with not really, it was rigged. So it looked like I was urinating, but I wasn't. And he asked me—
Extra bottles of water.
He asked me, could you pull down your panties too? Because it doesn't look realistic if you don't. So that was the weirdest note that I got.
I don't know how to follow that. I feel like I've been so fortunate to work with really wonderful directors. I mean, I think there is this is so basic, but I feel like there's always that thing when you move from the rehearsal room into the theater and you're constantly being told, like, send it up, see if you can turn out more, which are like basics. I was like in community theater knowing that you need to turn out to the audience, but when you've built something in a rehearsal room, particularly a more like intimate scene, and then are being asked to be like, and then do it like this. Figuring out like how to navigate that it's like real technique. And it requires what feels like, I think at the beginning, like you're demolishing the scene before you can get back to it, because you're doing this weird thing so that the audience can receive what you're doing. But that I'm like, I've been doing this for so long and I still am always like, okay, I'll try to turn out more. You know, that silly things like that.
As for the humble question, I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, we all live in New York. You're not walking down the street, people are like, Celia, Kate Mulder! You know.
Just at BroadwayCon.
We also are both mothers, and there is nothing more humbling than being a mother.
Yes.
And I think it's such a good question in the context of like, how do you keep yourself grounded in this business? Because I think there are a lot of ups and downs, and if your self-worth is tied up into what you're working on or how successful what you're working on happens to be, it's really easy to sort of go down a spiral where nothing is enough and where you're constantly longing for a better opportunity or for something else. And I still do that. I mean, it's life's work, I think, to try to have some balance of feeling grounded and also feeling successful and happy in my success.
Right over here.
Okay, yes, so you guys, so you guys, like, did you guys ever just, did you guys, have the stare into the bathroom window, practicing your gracious loser face? As you were?
Loser faces.
The gracious loser face. I feel like I did watch a year where somebody lost and they were like, and I was like, don't do that.
definitely like a video out there of that, I think, or a meme.
Yeah.
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 Lauren, did you practice your face?
I didn't practice, but I do remember thinking to just keep smiling. No matter what. But honestly, I tell you what, I didn't win. And it was a huge relief. Literally, I felt like a nanosecond of, and then it was like,
Right, is it like that whole night? Like, are you sitting on the edge of your seat, like waiting for your category to be announced?
I
Did you
didn't
feel it?
have to wait that long, and then we had to perform after that too. And I remember the next day I read the New York Times is like a running commentary, and I think Charles Isher was like, "Oh, Lauren Worsham has to perform after not winning in her category." Oh, but like I wasn't even thinking that at all. I was like, "Oh, great, that's over. Let's go do this thing now," you know. So I mean, yeah, it wasn't that long actually, but I was just relieved it was over.
Yeah, and I think also the 2 times that I was at the Tony Awards, I knew I wasn't going to win, and that was a much more pleasant experience than when people were like, "You might win." That was much more stressful.
Yeah. You had a question right over here.
Yeah. So you said that you're not usually noticed in public by fans, but have you had experiences with that? And what are your feelings on like being in the grocery store and possibly having someone come up to you and be like, "Hey, you're crazy"?
Getting noticed in public.
Yes.
I've only been noticed in like rehearsal studios, and really only when I was doing Gentleman's Guide. But since then, I not really.
Again, with the glamour in the theater, I would say I am almost always so grateful for somebody to come up and be brief. Not to say, I appreciate you and I appreciate your work. Yeah. It's so nice when that happens.
Right over here.
As mothers, do you encourage, discourage, or completely stay out of it with your children and following with you?
Ooh.
Good question.
So
Lauren has a
children,
7-month-old, so.
your children going into the theater.
I mean, I think you have to take your kids' cues. And I feel like if my kid is anything like I was, then I will get him into theater. And it's interesting because he's gonna be exposed to so much already. He's exposed to so much, but I think part of why I feel so lucky for this to be my job is that I still really love it. And I did it when I was a kid, not on any great level, but my parents were incredibly supportive without putting any pressure on me. And I feel like that is, when I see young people who are going into the business, I think, and I'm so grateful to all of the parents that let us do this, that I hope I can be, in whatever my child decides to go into, is the sort of, the support network without them having any stake in the game.
She's 7 months old. She doesn't do much.
Right over here. Yeah.
What's your dream musical role?
Dream roles.
One that's written for me.
It's always the answer.
It is, that's the best. I mean, I think it's always the answer for a reason. It's funny, I was on a panel earlier today, and I think right now, for the moment, I'm so much more drawn to like, who are the writers and directors that I want to work with, that I almost feel like I would do just about anything if I got to work with this person or this person, because I just have so much respect for the work that they're putting out, and that's right now what leads me to projects.
Who are those people?
Well, thanks for asking. I mean, Janine Tesori, Lisa Crone, Sam Gold, Lear de Besnay.
I'm currently in Big River at City Center, directed by Lear de Besnay.
Are you enjoying her?
She's wonderful. She also is a 7-month-old.
Very nice.
Yeah. Amy Herzog, Annie Baker, lots of ladies. Yeah.
I know the Tonys are only for Broadway, but if you could go back in your career to all the things you did prior to the Tony Awards, with regional and all kinds of things, what do you feel like you really nailed or you really got that you wish you could have been nominated for? Something that the world represents.
Pre-Broadway roles that you would have loved the world to see.
That's a really good question, but also it's that strange thing of looking back where I'm like, oh my god, I could have been so much better in that now. Maybe the production of Sweeney Todd that I got to do at the Kennedy Center. That was, I mean, while I was doing it, I was just terrified, and I would never have wanted to be in a Broadway season, I don't think, until you're actually there, and then you're like, okay, it's fine. But that was I was very young, so it was a sort of new, exciting experience.
What was your worst audition and how did you recover?
Worst audition.
The first time I auditioned for Darko, Tresniak, who directed Gentleman's Guide, was for a production of Carnival, and I was late, and I was wearing cowboy boots because I had to take my husband to the emergency room because he had fallen in the bathtub. That makes him sound like he's 85. He's not. He's just clumsy. So we had to go get an X-ray and everything, and then I rushed there. But then it was one of my worst auditions, but I ended up booking it in the end.
Really bad audition for the revival of How to Succeed in Business Without Money Trying. Thank you.
Right over here.
This is a total personal thing. Celia, I just want to tell you how beautiful the job you did with Jesse and Justin's wedding. I just been waiting 6 years to tell you that.
Up and comer Jesse Tyler Ferguson got married 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
But 3 years.
and I was there.
Amazing.
Spelling bee, I've been wanting to say how great it was.
Yeah. We have time for one more. Right over there.
Who were you marrying today?
Good one.
I'm wearing the shirt that Fox gave us for the Rocky. Like, literally, we got this in a box. And I was like, I'll wear it to BroadwayCon. And that's that.